Alright everyone, I'm going to do a walkthrough here of the C++ and Python setup. Just a reminder that this is part of the Module 2 activities. Now this is the written guide. So if you go to the requirements and rubric, you'll see this sitting right next to the video that I know a lot of you have watched. And we're going to walk through using this written guide so that I can kind of refer back and say this is what step we're on and go from there. Now here in the Oporto virtual lab, I'm going to open up the virtual machine here, give it a second to connect. Alright, so once this actually opens up, one of the first things that I noticed was that it already had Python installed. And just to make things a little bit simpler, I decided I would try and use that Python version. So yeah, you can see down here, it shows that there's Python installed. So if I go back to the setup guide, we're going to skip 1 and 2 and 3. And this is absolutely fine if you want to go ahead and do this. Just to help people that are struggling with a little bit, we're going to skip those steps. So now we'll go to this set of connecting Python libraries in Visual Studio, this one. Now, it does refer back to setting up Visual Studio, which you've done before. Let me go ahead and show you what you need to do here. So Visual Studio up here, Visual Studio 2019. We'll open it up. Takes a minute. And we'll skip this for now. I like the dark backgrounds. You see I've done this a number of times, but we're going to do it over here and start from scratch. But the overview of what we're doing here, we're going to create a project, and then we're going to create a source CPP file. And before we go on to actually linking the Python libraries, I'm going to show you how to double check that you've got an exe. So let's say create a new project. I'll select C++ for the language. And first thing that comes up is empty project. Start from scratch. And that's what we want. I'm going to call this Python CPP demo for video. Doesn't really matter. Now, let me show you one of the first things that's going to mess people up here is that the Oporto VM it's locked down security wise. And if you allow it to create your project in this path, it's going to cause issues. It's going to say that it's unable to launch because of group policy. Something I figured out the hard way. So I'm going to browse here, and I'm going to go to Documents and select that. And you'll see it ends with Documents, which means that this is the path, and then it's going to create the project here at the end. And I'll go ahead and select Place Solution and Project in the same directory. That'll kind of keep things collapsed there. If you don't do this, this is one of those things that can cause you to have two projects. It looks like your project name, and then inside that is another project name. They'll have separate releases. That's because one is your solution, which could have multiple projects in it. One is your project. If you click this box, it'll collapse that for you. So go ahead and create this here. All right, here we go. Some of you will have your Solution Explorer on the left, some on the right. Doesn't matter. Now, again, back to the instructions, it's going to tell you to go ahead and start linking the libraries, but I know that a lot of people have had problems with the exe file and making sure that they have that. So we're going to check that first. So I'm going to right-click on Source Files, Add, New Item. source CPP, C++ file, everything looks good here. Hit add. All right. Now I'm going to give it an empty main function. Now, a lot of the instructions, I think the video will tell you to go to the build menu up here at the top and click compile. And if you look down here at the output box, you get a warning, doesn't matter, and it does say 1 succeeded. So you would think that this meant that it was successful. So if we right click here on the project name and go to Open Folder, File Explorer, it takes us right here. Well, first problem, I compiled that in debug mode. So go back and make sure that we change this to release. Let's try it again. Compile. You see again down here, 1 succeeded. Now we have our release folder. But if I go in, there's no executable. The reason why is because compile just compiles your code, your C++ code, but it doesn't build a full release object. So in order to do that, we want to go to build and build solution, not compile. If we see down here in the output again, this time it's actually showing us that it created an exe, and it shows us the whole path. So if we right click, open folder in File Explorer, go into the release, voila, here is our application. Now you can't see the extensions here, so I'm going to show you another little trick. Click on View, File Name Extensions. Now you can see the .exe. That's going to come in handy later when we talk about the Python file that we need to create. Okay, so now we know that this is working. So now we can actually go back to our instructions here. Let's start with, from the Solution Explorer window, right click on the product title and properties. There's several pages here of instructions, but what they really are telling us how to do is how to link library directories into Visual Studio. So I'm just going to walk you right through doing all of them. Right click on your project name and go to properties and go to the VC++ directories. Now we have an include directory that we're going to have to add and a library directory from Python. Let's start with the include. Click this down arrow and edit. Handy box here. This first button allows us to add a new line. The new line is empty, as you can see, and if you don't feel like typing in the address to the path to the Python include directory, like I don't, you can click this ellipsis here, and we get a navigator. Go to C, program 86 because we're doing 32-bit. Scroll down, I see the Python. I see an include directory. Go in there. Now, before you hit select folder, double check at the top here that the terminal directory you're in is include. Select, and then double check here that the last one is include. Looks good. We're done with include. Now we go to the library directories, and we do almost the same exact thing we just did. Except, in this case, program 86. We are going to select the libs folder. It's important to note that it's the libs folder, not the lib folder. Terminal directory is libs. End of the path is libs. Apply. And OK. So that takes us all the way through down to page 7. All these other pages were just showing how to link stuff together and then set release, which we already did. Okay, so organizing the Python files in Visual Studio. It has writing this main, build and compile, and it wants you to find that exe. Now, if you follow these directions, that won't work, because if you selected compile, it would never have built it. Now we did this first because we wanted to verify that C++ was working, so we're good. we are good with all of this here, down to 16 on page 9. This is where we start to copy some of the DLLs over and create the Python file. So let's go back over here, and you can right-click to get the open file in File Explorer. We're going to go down and navigate. Well, let's actually go into the release. Yeah, we see our exe. Now we're going to navigate to the C. Program files 86, Python. And there's two DLLs we want here, 3 and 36. Now, if you installed 39, I believe that the DLLs are called 3 and 39. So we want to copy these two. Into this release folder with our exe. Alright, now the reason why we did this is that when we run our application, it won't have to search for these dynamic link libraries. It'll find them right away because they're in the same directory. Great. Same issue with our Python file that we're going to create now. So I went to New, right-click New, and a text document. And I believe we'll call this My First Program. But it's a .txt. But since earlier we showed extensions, we're able to just highlight that and replace it with a .py. And it does warn us that we've changed the extension. It might behave differently. We don't care. That's perfect. All right, back to Visual Studio now that we have everything in one place. We want to be able to edit that Python file easily. So we're going to right-click on Source File, Add, Existing Item. We're going to go into our release directory, and we'll select that Python file and hit Add. And there it shows up. So let's take a second recap. What we've done here is we've told Visual Studio about the Python libraries. We have created a project that we know compiles and creates an exe. We have copied the dynamic link libraries over into the release directory. We've created a Python file in the release directory. And we know that Visual Studio is compiling our C++ code and putting it into the release directory. And the end result is everything is in one place. Everything can see everything else. And now we just have to tell it what we want it to do. It's time to do some programming. So flip over back to our guide, and we just, by adding that Python file, we are all the way down to page 11, number 22. Now, provided here is some C++ code for us to copy in. We'll do a 2-second walkthrough here. It's going to output some information, but it initializes the Python virtual machine just-in-time compiler, and then we load that program. It's important that this My First Program matches the name of your Python file. It will then call a method in that Python called print something. We'll have to add that. It calls it, and then it closes up the Python execution. So let's just copy all this code here. Back to source CPP. Now, in the source CPP, we had that void main that we did a test. Just going to select everything and delete it. And then I'm going to paste. Alright, sorry that took so long, but if copy paste doesn't work, we have to soldier on. Alright, clean up the spacing a little bit here. That's our source.cpp. We hit save all. Now go over to the Python file, and we've got that information here too. something. Remember your tab here. Alright, that should be it. Now, we're going to build everything again with build solution. This will get our most up-to-date executable in place. Alright, I see a success and I see the exe was created. Shortest and quickest way to do this is just to click the local Windows debugger. Won't have any breakpoint set, so it'll just run the application. And we have an exception. Alright. So, it doesn't seem to have liked to print something. And that is what it's called. You have the indentation correct. Oh, that was a semicolon. It should have been a colon. Alright, we're going to stop the debugging. We're going to build again. One up to date, nothing built. Okay, local Windows debugger. And voila. There we are. This is what you take a screenshot of. Alright, hope that helps. Sorry it took a little bit of time having to type everything in, but hopefully this video gets everybody what they need.